asking ourselves why we have not been able to easily overcome them. We've lived the experience of Boko Haram in the northern part of Cameroon for so many years today, and also for over 7 years we've seen the northwest and southwest regions come under heavy attack and causing persons to die and destruction of property. And the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa is coming up with a project with the objective of mapping out key stakeholders who should be readily available to engage a dialogue in the respective crises rocking Cameroon, so that we can find lasting solutions to them and also make our nation to breathe again and live in peace, as was the case in some years past, at the time when Cameroon was described as an oasis of peace. We are going to be discussing with members of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, coming all the way from Boya, with also Tah Maih Jarvis, who is a person who masters issues of conflict resolution. But I'll start with you, Dr. Violet Yigha, who is the Executive Director for the Center of Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Leonard, and thanks for having us.
How is Boya today?
Boya is fine.
Okay. We are glad to have you on Prime Hour for the very first time. We also in the company of Mr. Cajetan Berinyuy, who is the Human Rights Officer for the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you very, very much, sir.
We hope CHRDA is doing well.
Yeah, CHRDA is doing good.
Okay. We also, like I said earlier on, in the company of Tah Maih Jarvis. Good evening, Jarvis, and we are glad to have you.
Good evening, Mr. Kum. Good evening to the members of the public, those who are watching us right now, and a special good evening to peace lovers, those who are lovers of peace, because in all religion, whether you bring in Christianity, you bring in Islam, you bring in Buddhism, you bring in Hinduism, all are centered towards peace, love, forgiveness, and of course, so we are here to talk about peace and possibilities in which we can also help to resolve conflict. So we want to say we are all here today to give us, me in particular, to give my own views as far as conflict resolution is concerned, and also a special good evening to Senior Barrister Abu Congo Felix, because it's not been easy. Taking bullet for standing to objectivity is one thing that we must commend him for that.
Okay, I'll start with you, Dr. Violet. The project you guys are engaging has to do with the creation of a pool of critical stakeholders through a mapping process that will readily be available for dialogue process with government to end the various crises or conflicts in Cameroon. Why are you engaging this project at this time?
Leonard, before I go ahead, I just want to wish everybody a happy International Day of Peace.
Okay.
Looking at the different crises in Cameroon and the humanitarian consequences that it has had, I think it is high time we start adopting a path to non-violence. I mean, every day we hear about the number of persons that have been killed. Every day we hear about the number of women that have been raped, the number of people that have been displaced, the number of people that have been tortured, the number of children who are not going to school. We've seen efforts by civil society organizations, we've seen efforts by different stakeholders just to ensure that Cameroon experience the peace that it has always known. Yet we get killings every day, we get people being burnt every day. So we thought it wise that it is time we start looking towards a different path, transformation, non-violence. What can we do? What action can we take? What strategy can we adopt to ensure that we start talking about peace? We start getting some sanity back to our beloved country.
The project actually wants to create a pool of critical stakeholders. What do we mean by pool of critical stakeholders?
So we do not want to handpick persons. We want 30 persons who actually have experienced the different crises in Cameroon. And we're not just talking about the Anglophone crisis, we also talk about the Boko Haram insurgencies in the north, who have actually experienced it, who have worked with people who have suffered from the crisis, and can stand and talk for the persons who have suffered for the crisis. So those who have the potential, those who have the insights, those who can sit and develop strategies, who have experienced it like the Anglophone for the past 7 years, and can say, okay, I've understood the path, I've understood the trend, and I can bring up ideas in which we can, or pathways in which we can adopt to ensure that we start looking towards a non-violent solution to the crisis. Yes, those are the kind of persons we need to come on board, to start working strategies towards peace.
Yeah, let's look at the timeliness. How timely is this? We are so many years into the Boko Haram crisis and the Anglophone crisis, over 6, we're talking about 7 years now. Why now?
You know, thank you very much. You know, when it comes to crisis and peace building, for example, is a process, and somewhere, somehow, we have to start something. And when you look at this project, for example, it aims to bring in stakeholders who are interested to be engaged in these peace building processes. And when you look at the project, it aims to map out these stakeholders in such a way that we can also discuss or prepare them for, if in future we have maybe a peace building initiative like the one that just ended, that was initiated in 2019, for example. Who are those who we can call on the table to discuss these issues? Because when you handpick, sometimes you know, people come there with their own interests. But if they come here with there with the purpose of maybe resolving the crisis or the armed conflict, as we may put it, you discover that it will yield a lot of fruits. There will be maybe the conclusion or whatsoever will come out of the peace process will be to bring peace, and not necessarily to maybe attain the individual objective. Okay. So I think that this is timely, because at least we have to start from somewhere.
We have to start from somewhere. Tah Maih Jarvis, how critical is the need for stakeholders to be put in place who would be ready to engage in dialogue processes that may be engaged by either external or government instances?
Mr. Kum, you know, it takes an individual or a group of individuals to start the war, but it takes a community to actually end that war. And oftentimes conflict escalates because we focus more on resolving than looking at preventive measures. And this effort by this organization is a very good one, because it is not only looking at the fallout of the different crises, but also aim at looking at the preemptive measures, because for you to solve most of this conflict that tend to violence, because I would first of all want to look at different strands of violence here. We have the direct violence, we have the structural and the cultural violence. And what we're experiencing in Cameroon from the different spectrum, we have the north, the Boko Haram, and also the encroachment of the Seleka rebel in the east. And if you look at also within the internal, some major cities, you remember the last time we had the conflict in Yaoundé, where some group of people were fighting among a different group of people, and you move to the northwest region where you have the womb crisis, where you have these people fighting against these people. So it is a critical moment for this is coming timely, and also looking at the geopolitical events that will take place in the nation. Because if you look at this, we are preparing for an election that is in under 1 or 2 years' time to come. So when you look at all these, and you look at the wave of violence across Cameroon, the boundaries of Cameroon, and so there is a need for such a meeting where you can train people who can now look at how they can be preemptive in resolving conflict rather than being reactive in solving the conflict. And so the timeliness for this selection of process, you talk about the criteria or the selection process, is timely, because if you look at in the different, let's take Douala for example, you need at least some people who can actually stand and help mitigate in conflict than actually can just say, okay, let's allow it for the government. There's always a cliche that people say the government is responsible, the government is responsible. But we are members of the state. We may not be members of the government, but it takes the state to work in synergy with the government in order to bring peace. It is a collective effort for peace, because aggressors have family members whom you are part of that family, whom you can talk to, like Mr. Roland Kwame put it in his book titled The Impact of One. An individual have that power to network in such a way that he mitigates this circumstance, this violence, and this conflict. So when we look at what this organization is doing, I must say that it is something that everybody should be on board, to get on board, to be part of this exercise. Because whether we like it or not, conflict is something that is actually you cannot is something that you cannot avoid, but violence is avoidable. Violence can be prevented.
Violence is avoidable.
Yes.
The question I want to ask all of you is why we have lived the Boko Haram crisis for long. It's been difficult to actually stop it. 7 years after the Anglophone crisis started, we are still into it. Why has it been difficult for it to be stopped? Is it because we lack those with knowledge on how to actually stop a conflict? Because like we assume that because you're a traditional ruler, you should know how to stop a conflict. Because you are a Muslim or a Christian leader, you should know. Because you are the senior divisional officer, you are a leader, you should know. But how much knowledge do they have on issues of conflict?
You know,
conflict resolution.
I really like this question you have asked, because oftentimes people take the role of mediators or negotiators or people who can actually break the deal to be assume that it is how much influence you have that you can make a deal. It's not how much influence you have that you can make a deal. And sometimes when you have that influence, people instead tend to look you as collaborators of the aggressors or vice versa. And so you need neutral personalities, those who actually understand the canons of conflict resolutions. And one of these canons is someone that can give a win-win, not a win-and-lose. Because most of these persons come first from a perspective of either we win or we don't have a deal. But when you have experts who are there to look at, to bring, because there's something we call in conflict the balcony perspective. The balcony perspective is that perspective where you stand, you remove yourself from the conflict and you look at it now from down, like you stand on your balcony, you look at it from a quiet position. In that level now, you don't have a position. You look at what is happening from this balcony perspective. And that's why conflict resolutors play the role of the balcony perspective. And you know, they also help these persons who are actually agitating to understand what is known as BADNA. BADNA, which means is the best alternative act to a negotiated agreement. Because when you have this senior division officer or those who are actually agitating for the conflict, let's take the case of Anglophone crisis, those who are front runners, those who are actually fighters of the voices in the bushes, can not actually make a deal. Don't even think rationally. Don't even look at a win-win approach. They see it like either we win or we fight. But now what happens now to the common man who is caught between the day one and the deep blue sea? So now we need experts who can best guide those who go for dialogue. Because those who go for dialogue, we are not negating the fact that senior divisional officers or those who are administrative or prominent elite or religious leaders don't also have a role to play in conflict resolution. They do have a role, but they need advisors who understand how they can best make the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. These are persons. If you look at what will happen in the Anglophone crisis, let me take for example, what happened within the onset and why we had this escalation was because the negotiators, both sides, or maybe the upper hand of the government, there was nothing like the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. If we don't have a deal, what next? What is the step forward? So when you have negotiators or people who are to be trained or those who are this organization has actually made it difficult, identify 30 personalities. And just imagine these 30 personalities. How many regions we have in Cameroon? We have 10 regions. Now of 30, divided by the number of regions, these persons can now give the reality of what each community within their different level is facing. And they also can play an advisory role to tell you that when you are going on this negotiation, this decision you take is not a lose decision, but it's also a win. So I think that in this regard, those officials, we are not saying they don't have role to play. They do have role to play, but they need personalities who can help them look at it from a balcony perspective, from the partner perspective. Because if you don't have the best alternative act to a negotiated agreement, you will definitely not be able to negotiate. The errors we have been having in most negotiation, including in business negotiation, is that people don't have, what if we don't have a deal? What can I do such that we have another alternative? It is only a win, a win. You will hear this other team will say, we are winning. This one will say, we are winning. But why not look at it from a constructive point of view, from a balcony perspective, and listen? And one of the greatest role that negotiators, or those who actually look at it from a neutral perspective have is that they actually listen to. But those who are actually fighting don't listen, and listening play an integral role in resolving conflict.
Yes.
So, if I should add, I think when we came up with this project, we told ourselves that we think there are some intermediaries that should work between those officials and then the population to start being the voice of the voiceless. Because yes, we know that people look up to them because they are leaders, because they are the ones who command the community and all of that. But there is this intermediary that we are not seeing, and that is why we had to develop one of the activities using the media as a key stakeholder in creating sensitization, sending out message that we need these people, we need them to show their interest, come out, show their interest that no, I think I have the potential.
You have the potential.
Yes.
You want to map out within the 10 regions a structure, a cream of experts who can readily be available in times of need, as we look forward to negotiating dialogues across crisis in Cameroon. But how will this training look like? How do you come up with a pool of these persons?
So, like I said, we are using the media as a key stakeholder in raising awareness about the crisis, about the project. And after doing awareness raising, we asked them to indicate their interest. So we've been having people declare their interest of being part of the 30 persons who will be a critical pool of stakeholders. So after they declare their interest, we'll do a selection, because certainly we'll have more than 30 persons. We'll do a selection of the persons based, one, on their interest, secondly, on the experience they've had in the different crises. And after that, we're supposed to do a training. Remember, it's not an easy task. There are a lot of eyes on them, there are a lot of expectations and all of that. So we'll do a training, and then from there they'll engage in what they were selected for. How can they engage in adopting a non-violent path to the crisis? Okay.
How will the training look like? You are going to train the guys of Adamawa in Gaundere, train the guys from the Southwest in...
No, we are going to bring them together and train together.
How long will the training
last? That we are still to decide.
Okay.
Yes. But certainly it's a 6 months project.
Yeah, so, but if it's a 6 months project and say I am interested or Jarvis is interested, how do
so
you
we have a month? We have a month to get the different persons declare their interest, and after the 1 month, we are supposed to now schedule for the training. After we must have selected the different persons.
What you are telling the population here now is that the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa wants to create a pool of stakeholders.
And we are doing a clear-on call for people to declare their interest.
Okay. If you are watching the program and you think that you have a call to be trained to be able to engage dialogue to solve the crisis in Cameroon, when the government actually says we want them, you should be available.
Sure.
So if you are one of these persons who is hoping to engage in finding lasting solutions to the existing problems that Cameroon is faced with, just indicate they should get to you.
Yes, they can get to us through executive director at CHRDA.org with their CV, and we'll pick it up from there.
Okay. If you want to get to the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa and to be trained in this process, 30 per region, you can...
30 persons in general, not 30 per region.
I thought it was 30
no.
per...
30
As
in
33
Cameroon.
per region, that gives
It depends. We do not want customize that we want 3 per
okay.
region. No. From their profile, we'll be able to know, but we'll try to get a representation, especially for areas where the conflicts are.
Yes, Mr. Cajetan,
Yes.
this is going to be daunting because we know how difficult the people of the far north have lived with respect to Boko Haram. We also understand the suspicious nature of the people of the northwest and southwest region when it comes to anybody who should position themselves as wanting to engage in any peace process. Where are you going to get those to train? What are the modules that these persons are going to be taken through?
You know, first of all, I would like to comment on the first question you raised about the those who can engage in conflict resolution or peace talks, like you rightly said. I think that when I was reading the constitution of the UNESCO, it was stated there that wars begin in the minds of men, and that it is still within the minds of men that defenses of peace can be constructed. And you know, we are going to go on with anybody who declares it is not going to be about your expertise. It is normally going to be about what you have been doing in that community to resolve the conflict, because you know, before before the who we call today expert, before their arrival, you know, our communities have their own ways of resolving crisis or conflict. Like you rightly said, the traditional rulers, we have our traditional rulers, they have been engaging in several ways towards resolving conflicts arising within their communities. And I think that to select these people is not going to be based on whether you studied conflict resolution or whether you have studied law. It is going to be based on the contributions you have really made towards within your community. Because if you start to go into who have studied, it means you are going to be training maybe those who maybe the intellectuals, maybe, or those who are not even interested, but they have a very big certificates. They have very huge certificates, but they are not really doing something within their communities. So we are going to select those who have been doing or impacting their communities in one way or the other. And when it comes to what was the next question again? This question that you just asked.
My question is: we know how daunting and expectations of the people on those who position themselves as wanting to engage in peace processes or dialogue processes. Yes, where are you getting those who would qualify to train them, and what modules are you putting in place to take them through the project?
Yes, you know, we have experts like Mr. Jarvis rightly said. They are also experts in, we have expert in conflict resolution, we have expert in the peace building, and we also have activists who have been active on the ground, the likes of Barrister Agbon Congo, for example. These are type of people that we engage these selected participants or beneficiaries of this project in the peace processes, or to build their capacity in toward peace building.
Okay, I want us to clarify something. This one says, good evening, Mr. Leo. By regards to your panelists, I doubt if the lady and the gentleman on set wants to organize the major national dialogue too, or what? I fear for their field pursuit. Nsah Neville is writing from Amanda. They are not organizing a major national dialogue. They want to train you and I who are interested in working for peace resolution efforts. So they want a pool of experts in the domain of resolving crisis in Cameroon. Today, if they ask you who should aptly position themselves or opt to solving problems or the crises that are rocking Cameroon, you barely not tell that this person is qualified, because you don't know those who are experts. Is this not also an aspect that has been neglected? Because we are asking ourselves why this conflict has not been resolved, but we are not asking ourselves whether we have people trained and qualified in conflict resolutions.
Mr. Kum, you know, when I'm happy because I was with you in Yaoundé for the Major National Dialogue when we were having a panel discussion, and I raised this issue that those who have been called upon also need people who understand conflict to be their coach so that they can best guide them before getting into that hall to make it, because at one point in time, if you have not had this training that the Center for Human Rights and Democracy is about to do, you may end up negotiating with anger or looking at the other party as a problem, because sometimes you feel like it's just getting the deal. But sometimes getting the deal is not what is so necessary. What is so necessary is building a relationship such that in case you don't get the deal, you can easily converge and renegotiate. But so when you don't have this training, and this is something that most Cameroonians are lacking, because we've had this situation since we have enjoyed peace for so long, for far good enough, we have not actually prepared to say that in case this peace falls down, what do we do? The United Nations is now focusing on preventing mechanisms that will prevent conflict from coming up, rather than investing in in taking care of the fallback for conflict. And one thing we must understand here is that the major center for every training of conflict or whatever problems is the issue of listening. And one of the greatest, the co-founder of the Harvard Negotiation Program, William Ury, made it clear that if you see the reason why we have conflict is just because of one word, listening, because parties don't want to listen. And so I'm sure the Center for Human Rights and Democracy, they are going to spend much of the time to teach you to listen, not just to listen to speak, because we have a temptation. Sometimes we listen, but we listen to speak, not listening to understand what the other party is telling us, but we just listen, okay, let me just be quiet and just wait till that he finishes and I pour what is on my mind. And that is not the kind of listening that I'm sure the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in their model they are going to present to us. Because in most conflict, whether it is from the marital conflict, whether it is from the institutional conflict, whether it is at the level of the nation conflict, the key aspect is the listening. And if you look at what Cameroonians are facing, the problem that we even have among Cameroonians ordinarily, keep aside government, is the ability to listen. Everybody claims that I will not listen to you. If you don't hear me, it's either we don't have a discussion. And if you look at this part for this, the training exercise very well, it's going to let those stakeholders who are also from the government bench to understand some of the modalities in which they can negotiate from you win perspective. Because for a conflict to come, the reason why we have most unresolved conflict is simply because of the fact that we didn't, some basic principles were not followed. For example, identify key stakeholders of the conflict. The next one is when you finish identify key stakeholder, you acknowledge a problem. People don't acknowledge problem. And when you don't acknowledge problem, it's a problem. It's a problem in itself. Because the fact, when you acknowledge a problem, yes, there is a problem. When you acknowledge a problem, who are the key stakeholders? When you acknowledge the key stakeholders, you work out the strategy. How do I get to the key stakeholders? Then when you get to them, you ask them, who are those you trust that we can get into discussion with? Once you do that, you start now, the next aspect is now to listen to each other. So if you look at what we're experiencing in Cameroon, especially within the conflict that we could actually resolve, like I said, conflicts are inevitable, but violence is evitable. And I am sure that's why this initiative has come up to reduce the level of violence. For sure, we cannot eliminate violence totally, but there's a percentage in which this violence can drop. And for it to drop, it is through this training. I just quote an example. In the Northwest region, we have the Fulani and this conflict. That is a major conflict, and we have had people who have died as a result of this. So if you can have someone that can be trained, who can say that, okay, keep aside the government, personally, I can go to this community and help to broker peace. It will help a long way to reduce the tension. Go now to the other side of the East region. You know, people who have actually felt the pain. I like what a doctor said. There's something that you asked from the equation that why do we look at government official, why don't we train? Now, the aspect that I like what she said was that if you look at these trainees who are going to be trained, these are people who actually felt and have actually lived the reality. Government officials, those in the armored cars, don't live the reality of Moya. They don't live the reality of Kwakwa. They don't live the reality of those in the Kumwe and Do. They don't live the realities of those in far north region. Now, this is what plays a key role. cultural dynamics play a key role in resolving every conflict. Most conflict within the state comes from cultural perspective, and that's why you must first of all train individuals to start by identifying the culture, because if you don't identify the culture and how this culture peace resolve in the resolution of peace in that culture, you may end up not resolving this conflict. Because what we experience in Anglophone crisis is not because we could not resolve it. It's just an issue of trust. And the fact that this person say, let's go here, I will achieve this. This person say, no, let's go here, achieve this. There's a short story that William Ury told that there was a father that had an orange, and he actually, the daughters were fighting on the orange. And now, when they were fighting on the orange, he decided to split the orange into two. So he split the orange into two, that, okay, you take half, this, you take half. They were satisfied. But now, this is an interesting thing. One took half of her orange, peeled, threw the peels, and used the fruit. The others took part, threw the fruit, and used the peel to bake a cake. Now, where was that conflict resolved? Yes, but was it resolved effectively? No. If the father had asked the child, the other one, why do you need this orange? That child would have said, I need it because I want to bake a cake. You, why do you need this orange? I need this because I want the fruit. So this one will end with the full fruit, and the other one will end with the full peels to do the cake. But the reason why we have most of this conflict is that the fact that we don't listen at all. And secondly, when we listen, we don't listen to understand what you are saying. We listen to pour out that, okay, let me give you the opportunity, so that when you talk, when I talk, the next time I want to talk, when you were talking, I do not interrupt you, so don't interrupt me. That is not the kind of way in which it is.
And let's not forget that we've had a lot of criticisms around the national dialogue, that people were handpicked, friends were selected for the national dialogue. Now, if the government were to say, okay, we want to stage a dialogue, who are we to bring to the table as those to represent us? Is it that time that we'll start fighting amongst ourselves that, no, we think this person is apt? This, I think, this is the opportunity. This is the opportunity to have persons that can actually sit and say, okay, and then we go through it, we see how we start adopting ways in which we can engage the different stakeholders.
And that is very true, because I once attended one symposium, and professors and doctors, they were like, you see what this thing called knowledge is? It's just there's nobody who is more intelligent than the community, because when you are doing research, for example, you go to the community and you collect data. You collect knowledge from the community, and then your work is just to gather the knowledge. And this is coming to the part of the process that we have initiated, like the selection of those who have been actively participating in the peace building processes within their communities, because these people will be able to also gather the experiences. If you take, for example, our recently launched a book, the Unheard Voices of the Anglophone War, and you see that this book actually captures the voices of those who have not been speaking, for example, and these community leaders are going to do that. If it happens that there's a call for dialogue, for example, they are going to capture the voices of those who have not been
heard.
Yes, and they will present this.
Good evening to you all in the studio. I'm well pleased, Mr. Liu, as I've resumed back to duty. I always like to follow the program. Okay, Benedict is writing from Douala. Good evening to you, Benedict. Good evening, Mr. Kum Leonard. What a good initiative from your panelists, two pathways that the government can take for peace to be achieved. One, prepare a bill for federation that existed in the past and send to Parliament for adoption and implementation, or organizing a referendum for Anglophones to determine their fate, a liberation of prisoners in collection to the crisis, and granting of amnesty to all should allow all expressions be made without intimidation. For there are so many silent persons with ideas but caught in between the government and the non-state. Daddy Ambiance is writing from Tico. Good evening to you, Daddy Ambiance. Mr. Leo, good evening. Just wondering how the creation of that pool will break the military option taken by the government. Even on International Day of Peace, bullets are flying. The government stakeholders who say they have nobody to discuss with. Ngala is writing in Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Leo and crew. Please, I wish to ask the lady in the studio on what qualifications do they consider before choosing the participants. Tanto Afung Siri Sebastian writing from Yaoundé.
Yes. So for the critical pool of stakeholders, we told ourselves that civil society actors and members of other organizations. But like I mentioned, those who have actually worked and felt the brunt of the crisis, those who can act like the voice of the voiceless, those who can act like those who can speak for those who have suffered the effects of these different crises that we face in Cameroon. Yes.
But how do we qualify? It is a training. Are there not some certificates level of education?
No, like Cajetan said, we don't want to rely base our evaluations especially on certificates, because like you ask Cajetan a question about modules. Trust me, we are not getting to the classroom. These persons will be the ones to train themselves, will be part of the teachers that will train themselves. Because remember, we are trying to look for a solution to the different crises in Cameroon. The solution is not laid in any book. The solution is in the minds of those who are on the field working with those who have been affected. So if there's any strategy, it should be coming from. So if we're having contributions today, I think this person should sit in their communities and try to already look for representatives that can start talking for them and start talking for the problems in which they're facing their community, and say, okay, we think we can propose this person as a one stakeholder, maybe from this area, that can actually sit and talk about the problems we are facing.
Okay. Mr. Liu, I just want to add to what she said, because there's no one size fit all in resolving conflict, and no method of conflict is unique in resolving conflict. For example, don't say in Ethiopia this was used, and so in Cameroon this should be used. Don't say because in the far north this was used, and so this should be used in Anglophone crisis. And don't say because this was used in the northwest and southwest, so this should be used in a particular area. Every conflict is unique in its own specificity, and that was why I talked about the cultural, the socio-demographic factors. It play a key role, and that's why she's saying that these persons who come from these affected communities sit among themselves, share their experiences, and after they share their experiences, there will not be a guide to say, okay, why don't we put it this way, and unanimously agree on how to tackle the root causes of most of the problems. Because when these people come, you can actually understand what the pain of the person in Moyoka is feeling. I said sometime on your program that if you go to the northwest and southwest, before the crisis in 2018 or during the heat of the crisis, most interviews will be interviewed in 10 when it was our boys. Most people will tell you in 10, now we say we want to separate. Now, when we move towards late 2019, when it now became the voices. Why it became the voices? Because kidnappings and the rest became known, and now the people now remove themselves. So the civil and military cooperation that the boys and the people used to enjoy was no longer there, and so the boys now became vulnerable. The military started invading camps and started succeeding. So when you look at that aspect, you move now, you ask the people, 5 then will tell you we want federation, we want independence. Now we are moved to a critical stage where now is people have changed from the voices, and some are calling it those terrorists. Some. Now, we are moved from in 10, you ask, 9 will tell you we want peace. They are not talking about position now. In 2018, they were talking about position. But now they're talking about interest. So negotiation is not based on position. It's based on interest. It's how we meet the interest, the aspiration of people. And when these people will come together in their community, they will share the interest of their individual community, not based on the position they see, but on how it can ameliorate their situation to effectively network, to build peaceful cohesion. And that's why I think that this is timely. And it's also timely because we have a political system that is highly divided based on tribalistic tendency, and so there is that need to start training peace builders to understand that in every election cycle we must also not look at it from the tribal basis. We must shun violence and look at it from the national based perspective as patriot, because in the beautiful rendition of our anthem it is stated that there were not tongue can tell that we will be in the midst in a riposte.
Good evening to you, Mr. Liu, and crew. Please, I wish to ask the lady in the studio on what are qualifications. Okay, you answered that already. So everybody who is passionate and who thinks that maybe the Holy Spirit has ministered to them, that they should be the voice now. God can speak to people.
Not the Holy Spirit, but actually they can be the voice of the voiceless.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I am a pastor internally displaced from Ekondo Titi. I have been praying for an opportunity to be trained in conflict management and peace resolution. I've had opportunities to talk with some persons involved in ongoing Northwest and Southwest crisis, but I lack that professional conflict resolution insight. Please, I wish to take the training. Help me with the ladies, with the details. I really yearn for this and wish to be among the 30s. Bishop Ndingi GM, writing from Douala. I will share a doctor's number. Should I share your number with him? So that, okay, so that what is required, he should send, you write to doctor, you send the CV, and they'll see whether you qualify. Bishop, good evening. I've sent you their numbers already, so you can get to them. But we are talking about getting a pool of people who should say we are ready to dialogue, to do this on behalf of the population. How easy do you think it's going to be for people to opt to taking these daunting tasks? Because we know, like I said, people are very suspicious of persons who come up. They'll say, Yaoundé has given you money, or maybe this other side is giving you money. It's actually a funded project, a Canadian funded project. Okay. I failed to mention that. Okay. Yes. A Canadian funded project. Yes. But now, participants would need to...
For media sensitization, the call was about the All Anglophone Conference that failed. But I think we should stop looking at the failures of every other thing. So how can we move a step forward? How can we look at the challenges, the shortcomings of the different initiatives that others have brought up, and build on to take a step forth to at least achieve something that can be reasonable, that can bring non-violence in this whole context of violence that we are facing?
Okay. Good evening. I think the bigger problem in Anglophone problem is to overcome those hiding and benefiting from it and manipulating the fighters. Kingsley is writing from Kumbo. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Zinoleski from Tico. These your people may not succeed if they don't take care. They have to be very careful. Is this not actually the problem that we have in Cameroon? Everybody wants a solution, but nobody is ready. Yeah, nobody is ready to take a step. Are we expecting some solutions to drop from heaven?
No, you see, that is actually the problem we are facing in Cameroon and nearly everywhere. Everywhere, you know, people want to enjoy peace, for example, but there's nobody who is willing to stand to call for justice. And if you look at what we have been doing at the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, we have been monitoring, documenting, reporting human rights violations, for example, is standing to speak for the people. When the rights are violated, you stand and you speak for the people. This is the type of people that we want. Those who can stand and speak for the people without maybe fear, but not speaking in such a way that you are going to cause another violence. Not speaking in such a way that maybe you are going to promote hate speech, for example. You know, there are some people in the course of their peace building initiatives, they stand maybe to cause another violence or maybe insult people. No, we do not want that, but we want people who can actually speak impartially and for the benefit of the people. And yeah, like you rightly said, it is going to be a very difficult task. The society, your community, if you are coming from a community, you know the community is going to be looking up to you. And you know, recently they proposed Canada peace talks. I don't know how it is going now, but something happened somewhere. And you know, when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Canada, of Global Affairs Canada, when they issued that statement, everybody was happy. But that was a process. But It has some ups and downs, and whether it has already failed, but we are still hoping that something come up from that peace initiative. And when it comes to that, to the security of persons, I think we want people who are impartial. If you are impartial, nobody is going to attack you. If you are impartial, nobody is going to maybe arrest or kidnap you. When you speak for the people and you speak true to power, that is I think people, you are not going to be threatened. Yeah.
Mr. Kum, I think there's something he has said, and that's why I think this organization, Center for Human Rights, is there to help people to understand that those who stand for the truth should not be kidnapped. Because oftentimes, instead, there has been that reverse in the Northwest and Southwest, where you want to see, like His Eminence of blessed memory, he was kidnapped. He was impartial. He was objective. At one point in time, he praised His Eminence for his pull, which said that 80% want separation. At one point in time, when he said, okay, you have done this, they kidnapped him and said, no, you ought to not have. So now, this is coming to let people understand that you must identify key stakeholders who can look at it from a balcony perspective, who take themselves away from the conflict and help you to see how you can meet your interest and not your position. I want to assure you that in most conflict that we have is because people are failed to negotiate from interest, but they want by position. Look at the state of Cameroon, look at the armed fighters and the rest. All of them have the same interest, but they don't want to see that. For example, A will tell you, we want federation. Because under federation, this will be guaranteed. Fine. If you implement that, the interest, everybody will be happy. Decentralization will tell you, we want it because we will have this is going to be guaranteed. Look at what is going to be guaranteed. It's the same thing that the man in A had talked about federation. Now look at those who say confederation. Why do you want confederation? The why is a big question. Ask all of them the why. If all of them put their aspiration together, you have what is called in set A union, B union, C. There will be that interjection point that all of them will agree on key issues, which will be their interest. But now look at even the one who says they want separation. Why do you want separation? They will give you the same reason. It's the same reason for decentralization, federation. And now why don't we keep aside our interest? This one said no, it must be done this way. And that's where we are having a problem. And so impartiality has made many of these fighters who seem want to be the negotiators, either both sides, see those who are impartial as a threat because they don't understand what conflict resolution is. Because the moment you understand what conflict resolution is, you will see those who are impartial, like His Eminence Cajetan, as being an asset and not a threat. You see somebody like Barrister Kowo Bala Felix as an asset and not a threat, because you expect that when A does it, he condemns. When B does it, he condemns. A say, you have taken this side. When this one, so there is a need, and I'm happy we need this, because those who attend this training, I'm sure they will understand the role it takes to mediate a conflict. Mr. Liu, I will tell you, I'm happy you are a big presenter. You receive messages, and sometimes I'm sure you must have received some of those messages where they will tell you background. You also hide the go. It will tell you that even those who claim that they are fighting don't know where it's going to, and so who can help tell you how you can make your negotiate from your interest? These are the persons who are impartial. Okay. Now, but how do we know that we can hold them in high esteem? And that's why we need this training. Okay. And that's why we are doing this discussion.
Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. Please let Mr. Jarvis stop using the name Boyces. Samuel is writing from Bonaberry. No, there's no Jarvis on this platform. This, yeah, I don't know. Good evening to everyone in the studio. About Simon from Sabibi Tiko. I want to ask a question to the man in black, that apart from dialogue, what else can we do to settle the internal problems going on without people going for the dialogue, being killed or criticized? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Ask the panelists to explain how this process in Cameroon will succeed without those throwing stones outside and making this crisis in the Northwest and Southwest not ending. This is Mr. John in Pomenda. Exactly the problem. Everybody, we criticize almost every venture. Yeah. So he's asking that those guys who are out there who are throwing stones, how would they not also throw stones at this? But you already are aware of
these challenges.
These challenges. Yeah. And how are you prepared to go through? Or what gives you that force, that stamina to want to push through?
And that's why we initially the item of the training wouldn't have been part of our process. So the training also is to prepare the different stakeholders of the different challenges. And secondly, don't forget that these are persons that are already on the field. So these are challenges that they live every other day. So they are versed with these challenges. And thirdly, there's nothing that we engage in that there are no challenges. So in life, you must learn to overcome the challenges to be able to succeed. So we are aware of them, and they are aware of them, and we certainly will take measures to ensure that they are overcome. But these are persons that are on the field. I still repeat, there should be persons that are on the field, and these challenges are part of their daily life.
Okay. Mr. Leo and panelists, greetings to all of you. Just to advise on the training. The training is good to handle. I think our problem lacks justice, accountability. Before we talk of peace, there can be no peace without justice, accountability, which is far lacking in our government, and people are loyal to the government. Thanks. Writing from Bamenda town. I don't know, but I have something about this justice and peace, because
just quickly.
Yes, I'm writing a book on peace and justice. Yes, everybody says without justice there can be no peace, but sincerely, I have my doubts on that. Yeah.
I totally disagree with those who say justice first, because we are looking at the justice we are talking about is the social economic justice that we are talking about. Because let's be very fair, if everybody say justice, who is thou that have not seen it? Everybody is dirty. Now, if you lay a foundation on that justice first, you will not have that table. You will not sit on that table, because everybody on that table, you are coming because there is a problem. So we look at peace and reconciliation, and now meet with the social economic justice. When we're talking about the social economic justice, we're talking about that resources should be distributed equally. We're talking about the fact that equal opportunities should be given. And if equal opportunities is given, resources are evenly distributed, it mitigates conflict, and it prevents, that's preventing mechanism of conflict. Every conflict, let's take Ethiopia for example. Ethiopia, when Prime Minister Abiy came in 2018 when he won the Nobel Peace Prize, there's a concept he used, and that concept is what I always talk about. It is called the Magdemal. Magdemal is an Amharic word, which means that make the best of our practice today and form a new culture. And let's ask as an example, let's say justice. What is justice? It means that if you kill Mr. A, for you to have that justice, you should go and kill Mr. B. Has that solved the conflict? And that will be going in that circle, in that circle, in that circle, in that circle. What I see as a negotiator in all the conflict I've observed across Africa is that if you start by the prism, justice before peace, you will never have a dialogue. You will never have a table to sit on. But if you start on peace and reconciliation, that's what we first have. We first have the peace and reconciliation. Then we have now the Truth and Justice Committee that comes in and say, okay, where did we err? We have reconciled.
Why has it been very difficult for us to understand this? Because take the case for Rwanda. It was after the conflict that a court is set up to try persons. In Sierra Leone and in other, we have lived this. But everybody seemingly is saying that justice before peace. Now, in the situation of chaos, who actually sanctions?
Yeah, exactly.
For me, when I look at, for example, the Anglophone armed conflicts, you see that what is justice to A may not be justice to B. Maybe those who stand for decentralization think that if they properly implement decentralization, that could be justice. The separatists think that if there's separation, there could be justice. If the government think that if you want Cameroon, there's justice. And those who have been affected by the separatist fighters, they think that if separatist fighters, if they go down for it, it is justice. And those who have been affected by the government forces, they think that if the government forces go down for it,
So everybody wants justice.
Justice.
And,
So what is justice?
and if everybody wants justice, there will never be peace.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but there is one simple question I ask in the book. I am still working on the book. The question I ask is, if we say justice before we can ever have peace, this guy kills your mother, and you say justice before there is peace. The guy is taken to court and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Will you be at peace simply because justice has been said? And after the guy serves 20 years, comes out, will you still love the guy because justice was served? Will there be peace between the both of you?
No.
If you fail to forgive and reconcile with him, is that not where peace starts?
Yeah, that's where peace starts again, as we said, because I want to go to this concept again. Look at the Nigerian Biafra Civil War that started in 1967 and took 3 years. And how was that war resolved? It was not resolved based on justice. It was resolved based on reconciliation. When Ojukwu and Gowon unanimously decided that, okay, let's reconcile both sides. And then after that, a tribunal was formed. Because you cannot form a tribunal in the midst of chaos. You say you want justice. I'm happy he just painted out the picture, because you say you want justice. Let us look at it from the perspective that everybody, even those who, as we speak, that still on social media, they will also be bashing us based on this same thing that I know is normal. Now, you say you want justice. If Mr. A says justice to me is the fact that separation, Mr. B says justice to me is the fact that you who say separation, you cause havoc, you should go in for. Mr. D says no, you who says the one Cameroon you have done, you should go in for. Who now plays that role of bringing people together to talk? Personally, I've had people killed in this conflict. My brother and the wife were shot in 2018 in Moya. They were shot. But does that negate the fact that I should not pursue peace? Peace is priceless. And for us to have that true and lasting peace, we must sit on the table and discuss and have that reconciliation, truth and reconciliation. What I believe we need in all conflict first is that truth and reconciliation. If a couple, they have a problem, what they do in resolving that conflict is that they don't go for justice first. The mother-in-law will come. Your mother will come, my mother will come. They will sit together and say, my pikin, what did really happen? This, that. After that, they say, okay, this is why we don't do. And so we believe, say, may you do so, maybe marriage, go fine. That's where justice come in. And it's social justice. It's not punitive justice. The justice that we have been able to have is conciliatory, is retributive. And they are talking about a retributive justice rather than a conciliatory justice. And we should look at conciliatory justice. And that's why I go for the fact that in all conflict, whether it is at the level or the UPC crisis we had in Cameroon, it was the reconciliation. The South Africa, it begins by the truth and reconciliation. Now justice come and look at who were those who committed the heinous crime, the atrocity. That's why we are talking about the International Tribunal for Cameroon. We are talking about tribunals. Tribunals will be formed. But tribunals don't come during war. Tribunals come when we have all persevered and say, okay, let's reconcile. Then we say, okay, this one committed this one committed this. Those which we can forgive, we grant amnesty. We say, okay, now based on this discussion, the state or parties have resolved, both sides have resolved that amnesty should be granted. And you cannot discuss amnesty when you are not had on the table, because that will be part of your negotiation. When you are coming on that table, that, okay, you know what, we may have done this, my team is proposing that this amnesty should be given, this other side. That's how it's done.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. I so much love this program. Please, may I have the contact of the lady in the studio so I can apply? Cornelius writing from Lebialem. Good evening to you. I'll send you doctor's number. Good evening, Mr. This crisis in Cameroon is a proof that the so-called conflict experts in Cameroon need more and more lessons in conflict management. I see President Paul Biya to be the most intelligent person in Cameroon because he started the Anglophone crisis in the airport, and he can use just a single word to end the crisis in the same airport. The Department of Conflict Management and Resolution at ERIC, Yaoundé, and other universities should be scrapped out in various noble institutions. Amdo Valentine Chawano, writing from Mbu Bakundu. Okay, Hello, Mr. Kum. Good evening. Once more, sit in the keys of the Anglophone matter. The justice is the acceptance of the problem. The president agreed in the Lyon, Paris alone. France that did try to assimilate, but then it food that is a justice of it. We have to go from there. I need an order, a business idea will refuse that. Okay, your message is not really clear, please. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. In fact, this your platform is God-given to Cameroonians of Anglophone in particular. I like the initiative of those people in the studio, but I'm afraid of this crisis does not go back to the root causes. There will be another one in times to come. I know we all need peace, but we have gone too far to trying to solve the problem in the middle. I rest my case. J-Boy is writing from Bomenda. Yeah, but the problem now is, J-Boy, please, those who are watching this program, what we need to understand is that these guys are not trying to solve the problem. They are struggling to come up with persons who are experts in the art of conflict resolution. You want the root causes to be addressed, right? But let us have experts who can actually handle the aspect. That is what they are trying to do. They are not trying to solve the problem. They want that what you want, let experts in the domain. Oh, except I'm not getting.
Yes. And please, everybody seems to be giving their solutions. Everybody seems to be giving proposals. I think it's also high time, because everybody also will want to apply, and we need 30 persons. I think it's also high time we sit and we say, like I said before, I think in this community, this person can absolutely represent us. You understand? And then we push forth this person that, okay, we think this person should put
the community trusts this person.
Trust this person to stand and speak for the community. Because remember, we need 30 persons. And even if there are certain persons that even if they don't apply, we know that these persons have done this or have contributed this far as far as the Anglophone crisis or the Boko Haram insurgency is concerned. So there are also persons that will move towards them and propose that we think you have the potential we need to be one of the critical stakeholders. Yeah,
because when everybody says what you guys want to do cannot solve the problem, what you guys want to do cannot solve the problem, the question is, who actually has to solve the problem? Because if everybody sits back at home now and says, this initiative will not solve the problem, the next initiative will not work, this other initiative will not work, what then is going to work?
You know, in the likes of my boss, Barrister Agbon Congo, he will always say that everybody is a civil society actor. That everybody is a civil society actor. For example, people think that maybe some of us who are working in the civil society, they are the people to go and maybe say something about the Anglophone crisis or the Anglophone armed conflict. No, each and every one of us, we have a role to play. And until we realize that there's a need for everybody, every individual to start doing something or saying something about resolving the ongoing conflict in Cameroon, I think there's no organization that can do that. Only the people can do that. And if we keep on saying that there's no initiative, that this initiative is not going to work, this initiative is not going to work, even going back to like one of the person who sent the message rightly said that peace or justice before peace, even going back to the like some people have already proposed that they can go back to federation. We need people to talk, to
articulate these things.
To articulate. We need people to talk about it, and these people we only come from our communities.
We should only
Yeah.
see behind the side.
Yes.
Come forth.
And it comes back to what I was talking about listening. That you don't just listen because you want to talk what is in your mind. You listen to understand the context in which that person is coming from. And that's what the problem we have in Cameroon. They are not listening to the program because they want to understand the raison d'etre and how it's going to be impactful to the community. But they are listening because they think that they will have what is in their mind. this national dialogue, these people have been bought, these people have been sent, that's what is in their mind. That's why I talk about the fact that most conflict comes because of the center point listening. We fail to listen, because now the Center for Human Rights and Democracy is not saying that they are organizing a major national dialogue. It's not saying that they want people to go and represent ABC, but what they are saying is that they want to form minds and hearts, people who can understand how conflict can be resolved in drawing in mind their respective experiences in their different communities, where they can have a shared knowledge and chart a path forward in making them to understand that this is how you can handle it professionally, and this is how you cannot handle it when you are faced with such a conflict in your community. Except we are talking Chinese here, and that's why I'm saying that in conflict resolution, even in marriage, why most marriages fail is because couples don't want to listen. Not listening to understand, but they listen to speak. That give him that, okay, talk now. You don't finish. Let Manama talk. Let Manama call me. Talk and not interrupt me. But did you listen to what that person was talking about? Did you actually pick the key word? And most often, you don't listen. You listen to understand what that person is not saying. That person ought to say.
Okay. Good evening, Legal Minds. Can we Cameroonians do a nomination to some of the persons? Muma is writing from Bomenda. Can communities yes, make proposals? Yes, okay, if you think that there is somebody in your community that can aptly be trained to do the representation.
Yes, and the person must be willing to also. The person must be aware and willing to.
Okay, the person must be aware and willing to do the job. You can get to doctor through, you just write to me, I will share her number with you so that you can go for the training. So that you don't only sit and write there, you should be seen. Good evening, welcome back to our Cameroon. Thanks for the work today, thank you very much. And yes, it's our Cameroon. Mr. Liu, good evening. Mandela reconciled with the whites even though he was in prison. John is writing from Bomenda. Good evening to you all in the studio, and special greetings to you, Mr. Liu. President Biya's regime is corrupt to the extent that you can't do anything in Cameroon because for meritocracy, except you have a godfather in Yaoundé. So let's see if the constitution is revised to rotatory presidency. Will those separatists still talk of separation? Anglophone problem is the regime in okay. Lionel is writing from Boya. I don't know the relationship with the topic for today. Hey, Mr. Kum, please tell Tah Maih Jarvis that he has just his talk about is not talking somebody to court. They mean the acceptance of the problem, which is the truth because of the problem, is then from there you go along for reconciliation. But if you don't accept it because of a problem, I don't know.
I talked about the fact that he did not get me. I said I gave some cardinal principles. I said first, acceptance of the problem. Then I said the next thing is to identify key stakeholders in the conflict. Then the next thing is to pick an appointment and see how you can chart a way forward. And what we are talking about, he did not get me very well. And like my brother here said that justice to individuals varies. Somebody, like he just answered, he just said what he said. He said to somebody, justice means acceptance, that it is this. To another person, justice means this. To another person, means that. But now, what is the Center for Human Rights and Democracy's role is playing is that let us have a harmonized front and help you to identify your special areas of interest and how you can actually beat you can actually beat your point on the table professionally, without nobody interfering. Remember, they are not training people to come and say you must give independent, you must give this, you must give that. People who should have a mindset of resolving conflict, regardless of your point you have, you can help in that training know how you can channel your point. So I'm not saying that justice, that acceptance is not justice. Acceptance is justice. And we look at within the context of Cameroon, President Paul Biya with Mo Ibrahim, he made it clear. And even in President Paul Biya's speech in 2019, 31st December, he made it clear. Even before announcing the Govt national dialogue, he made it clear that, okay, there is an Anglophone problem. So if we go by that is context, there have been acceptance to it already. Now, what is stopping us is because we have refused to look at our collective responsibility. First, as citizens of Cameroon. Okay. And second, individuals of our communities.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. This is Pambu from Bankim. Remember, this Anglophone crisis has hurt individuals, families, and communities, and therefore I think the initiators should try first to construct the minds of those hurt before they can talk about peace. Yes, I don't know how you can only reconstruct their minds by talking peace now. How do you reconstruct their minds? You can, if you talk hate, you talk violence, you talk this in their minds. There will never be peace now.
The same as one of the strategies they can say is a path to peace is providing psychosocial support and counseling to those who have been affected. So, I mean, why don't you look for somebody that can represent your community that has been affected? Let them come and propose a solution that can start solving the problems that are in the minds of persons.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Elat writing from Boya. I love the program. Please, can I have the doctor's number? I wish to take part in the training. Okay, I will send it to you. Mr. Liu, what immunity do you have for those experts? Kondengi is waiting for some of them. Ngala is writing from Bamenda. Yeah, I think that if we were to put in our minds that accident is waiting for us along the way, nobody will travel. Yes, you will not take a bus because probably this agency had an accident yesterday, so I should not.
Even plane crash now.
Yeah, even a plane. nobody will take a plane. Yeah. Good evening to all the panelists. Please, we shouldn't take the way problems are handled at the family level to national issues. The concept of justice and peace at the national level must be dealt with in sincere truth. This is a war we are talking about. Okay. Ntongwe Chris is writing from Yaoundé. Ntongwe Chris, I don't know. Good evening to you, Mr. Liu, and to all the panelists, Anglophone representatives in the parliament were in a better position to spearhead for a solution. Instead, they are so much happy sitting in Yaoundé. I think Anglophone chiefs will be in a better position to solve this crisis. James is writing from Yaoundé.
So which chiefs do you think can be part of our critical pool of stakeholders?
If you think that chiefs are better placed, propose the chiefs to come for the training, because being a chief does not make you an expert in conflict resolution. Being an MP, I don't know, MPs are they experts in conflict resolution?
No, the issue is we all can be trained to look at it from a professional perspective. And the reason why you go for training, and the reason why this training is important, is because it helps you to have the independent mindset of resolving conflict. Most conflict that the Northwest and Southwest has been a sentimental conflict. I will caption it from like a sentimental conflict. That people, instead of looking at the force of reasoning, they are now looking at sentiment. That no, as we have said it is independent or nothing else. It is either separation or nothing else. It is either decentralization or nothing else. This training is aimed at helping you. If you are an MP, it will help you now to know how you can use that skills to leverage and to dialogue with the people. If you are a chief, you are already well placed, because what you need now is a skill to know that, okay, this is what my community is facing. Maybe I should present it this way. Because remember that the key aspect of negotiation, it is not negotiation end with a solution. The key aspect of negotiation is to establish a good relationship, so that if you fail to accept the terms, you still have that communication, that you can still meet on the table and talk.
Okay.
Yes, and please let me make something clear, because when you say experts, when you keep saying experts for conflict resolution, some people start thinking that no, because I don't have a PhD, I don't have a master's in, I'm not qualified. Please, even the mommy that does not read, but I know mothers that will access. Yes. We need, those are the kind of persons we also need. So it's not all about your educational qualification, but how you can bring impacts on the ground.
We have people who do not have ordinary levels, but when there is a problem in the quarter,
they are the ones.
Exactly. Yeah.
Those are the kind of persons we are.
Yeah. When you have land disputes in your villages, I'm not sure you call the professors.
Exactly.
You go and call one pa who is sitting, probably has gone to the farm. You wait for that pa to come. That pa will come and sit in the middle and tell you, my picking, this one are so, this one are so, this one are so, Moku handle and so,
yes.
And so. So what it is not about the qualification, because everybody has an in them God-given talent to negotiate.
Can I have the number from the doctor to apply? I am trained in conflict management and I have been practical in the field since the crisis began. Okay, you will get to her. Mr. Tah, you are so wonderful and intelligent, and I love your speech because it's so educative and vital, sir. And thanks a lot, sir. God bless and good evening to you all. Jean-Baptiste is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I hope dialogue is the best solution to solve the problem of Anglophones. Kifon writing from Obala. Mr. Liu, has the government approved it? If not, we are waiting. Okay. This one says, my name is Manga Sunday from Limbe. I'm writing to ask for help. Please help with some money so that I can pay my school fees. Okay, and I have saved. Oops. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I've read your message already. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm enjoying the program. Please, can I just ask the lady by you when they are going to call us? Because I already submitted my documents some days back, but they haven't called till now. Eyong Tanyichiku is writing. Yeah, they're certainly going to call. Just be patient, please. Hello, Mr. Kum Leonard. Since justice is acceptance and a simulation process, horse field done yet. If you go to the polyams for federation as it has been in the past, so that this crazy shall come to an end. Thank you very much. It's your daddy ambulance writing from Tiku. I don't know, daddy ambulance. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Late Kadnatumi had lofty ideas on how to solve the Anglophone crisis. It seems his proposals were a flash in the pan. Wilson Faison writing there. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I love your program so much. When individuals are thinking about peace in Cameroon, my question is this. Is that supported by the state of Cameroon? Are the non-state groups holding arms and giving intimidating instructions that are well respected and accepted by the people for any peace process accepted for any peace process? If the government of Cameroon and these other groups have not given their accord to any peace process, then let's stop wasting our precious time. Samuel is writing from Douala. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm happy following the program. It's so touching and educative, sir. I will be happy to be one of those to receive the training that is proposed. I am Bam Valentine Somche, watching live from Yaoundé. Okay, you write to doctor. I'll send you her number so that you get more information. Good evening, Mr. Liu and everyone at the studio. I wish to take part in this training for national. Okay, it's not a training for national dialogue, please. Good evening, Mr. Liu and everyone there. I love this program so much. Thanks for being there for Cameroon. You are a blessing because the Bible says in Psalms 127:1, if the Lord does not build the house, the work of the builders is useless. If the Lord does not protect the city, it is useless for the sentries to stand guard. It's Mary writing from Limbe. Good evening to you, Mary. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Please, I need the doctor's number. I wish to take part in the training. I'm Mola Ndumbe, writing from Aboya. Good evening to you, Mola Ndumbe. Now, conflict resolutions. Everybody wants the conflict to be solved from their position. Positions are not shifting 7 years after. How do we explain this? Because when you get the reasons, some of the messages, it shows that some positions have not shifted even after 7 years, and everybody is saying that there is need for acknowledgement and acceptance. But are we really sincere to say that there is no acknowledgement and no action has been taken since? And if actions have been taken, are actions not taken because of the acknowledgement of the problems?
The critical step in every conflict is, first of all, to accept that there is a problem. And sometimes accepting that there's a problem is a step forward. And now I always say this, that the worst form of any negotiation is better than no negotiation. The worst form of any negotiation is better than no negotiation, because at least there will be something that will be achieved in the process. And now you have asked a question that for 7 years we have been having this crisis, and people say acceptance. Is it that there have not been an acceptance? Is it that nothing has actually changed? There have been some changes, some significant changes. Because in 2016, we have some top government officials that said there was no Anglophone crisis. But the commander-in-chief, President Pierre, said there is a crisis, there is a problem. He acknowledged in his end-of-year speech, and when he said, and also in his, he has his traditional addresses to the nation, but there was a particular address that was only on Anglophone crisis, which was not on the end of year, in which he acknowledged. And when he went to Mo Ibrahim's interview, he said, he acknowledged also the errors that they made, and that's acknowledgement. Now, the aspect in which we have had a grand measure national dialogue, I will say as a negotiator without taking inside that, yes, some steps may have been taken, but to others and to the fair share, we still need more steps to be taken. It's not like nothing has been done. That's why we always say in geography, those who study geography, that don't say lack of, say inadequate, because things have been done, but they have not been adequate enough. But when you say nothing has been done, you are being intellectually dishonest, and this is what starts dialogue. This is what prevents further dialogue. This is what prevents further negotiation. I earlier stated that the reason why you should go to a table, you don't go to a table to have a deal, but you go to a table to establish a relationship, that in case that deal fails, what next? So when you have that already established relationship, then if you don't agree on point, it's easy for you to meet. And let me tell you that it is very normal that in the process of that negotiation, people will fight, people will argue. When that moment comes, no, it's normal. One of the challenge that, or the things that some negotiators do, that they fail to tell their parties, is that they fail to paint the picture as it is during the dialogue. They feel that, no, don't go, just go on the table, everything will be fine. Just know that the first day you meet, you quarrel, you argue. But that's normal. When that moment comes, take it as normal. Now, the next time is that you no longer fight, you just say, but last time what you said, I didn't like it. Temperature has died down. The next time is, okay, what do you think we can do? So one of the challenges we have in Cameroon is that we don't listen. And that's why for 7 years things have been done. We don't listen to the things that have been done, but we just want that our minds is what we have said. I'm not saying that the government of Cameroon have done everything necessary. But what I am saying is that something has been done. We have had a grand measure national dialogue. We have had some prisoners were released, and some also they had their process discontinued, their legal issues discontinued. We have had the special status, though people say, in fairness, that how special is it? But at least we have had the independent consulators in the different regions. We have had the House of Chiefs. We have had also the redistribution of ministerial positions. We have also had some few benefits as far as the conflict is concerned. And however, something still needs to be done. That's what I say it's inadequate. And now to have this inadequacy catered for, the Center for Human Rights and Democracy feel that to those of you who are able to intervene to see how you can resolve their respective conflict, whether it is a northwest and southwest conflict, whether it is in the northern part of Cameroon, whether it is whichever conflict that beats the nation, you should be able to put yourself in a position where you can quickly identify, resolve, be preventive mechanism. And so they are not saying they have come here to organize a grand measure national dialogue. They have not said they have come here to speak on behalf of the government, because I hear people sending messages and asking, has the government approved it? They are not, or have the separatists approved it? It is not a measure national dialogue that they need a permission from the government to organize a measure national dialogue, or the separatists. But it is an avenue, just like any other organization, to form minds and heart of people who should be able to say, okay, when the dialogue comes, these persons have been equipped to identify the needs of the people of their respective communities. And that's why she said, Doctor said that these are people who come from the different communities, who have feel the brunt, who have been directly concerned about this conflict, and that they will teach themselves. And teaching themselves in what context? By sharing their experiences, by sharing their cultural in those areas. And now when they share it, what always happens is that there's that boot camp where people are divided.
Yeah, but why don't we think that this conflict has been dragging for so long? Because those who are, there are so many silenced voices in our respective communities, and that this is the opportunity to get these voices to be heard, because there are persons who may absolutely not represent the people who are talking on their behalf when they have local guys that they believe in, and this is the opportunity to send them to come and receive this training and then henceforth talk on behalf of their respective communities.
You know, I think the Danish Refugee Council recently ranked Cameroon Anglophone crisis, or the Anglophone armed conflict, as the most neglected armed conflict in our currently. And I think that something has been done, but we still need to do more, like Mr. Jarvis rightly said. And we need to go back to the table and sincerely dialogue with each other, because yeah, there has been the national dialogue. We had a national dialogue. Some recommendations were made, including the effective implementation of the decentralization system of governance that was already included in the Constitution of 1996. And you know, the independent all those
independent conciliators,
and the common laws section at the INAM, common law bench at the Supreme Court. So all of those things, yes, there have been something, but we still need to do more. And to do more, we need more people to also come up with ideas on how to resolve the conflict. You know, there are people who can speak with the separatist fighters face to face in their various communities. There are people who can speak to the government officials face to face in their various positions as community leaders. And we need these people to come to the to the public space, or when we organize these trainings, we need them to come to own up and indicate that they are willing to maybe lead our communities in the peace building processes. And I also think that there's a need for the international community. The international community has been so reluctant, or not reluctant, but very slow in reacting to our conflict here in Cameroon. And you know, if you take for example what is happening in Ukraine, if you see how the international community is reacting, it is different. And I also think that if the international community can push in more effort to, for example, sanctions do not only mean for Russia and other partners or other international stakeholders or other countries like Russia, China, or whosoever. Yeah, sanctions can be for separatists also, leaders also. Sanctions can be for the government to force them to come to the table and discuss with each other, because without the economic policies or the economic diplomacy, you can use the economic diplomacy rather than maybe supporting the war. They can use the economic diplomacy and say that if you don't go to the dialoguing table, this is what we are going to do. We are going to block you. Maybe we are going to freeze your account. You are going to. So these are some of the issues that have been lacking for too long. Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Aku Luke Brain, writing from Tico. I love and enjoy the program so much. Thank you. This one says, my name is Oscar Ndumbe Mioto, civil advocate in training. Mr. Liu, evening, please, could you give me the number of the lady on panel? I'm currently watching you guys on set. I wish to take part in the training. I live in Boya, okay? You have her number, the doctor. Good evening, Mr. Liu. please, for the doctor's number, I want to participate in the program. Doctor, you may be overwhelmed with applications, yet you want just 3. Mr. Leo, greetings and all in the studio. The reason why people say, are you sure this will work, is because the Amber leaders have fixed their minds to hear only what is of the interest. Anything someone says concerning peace, you are considered an enemy. Okay? The other guys, leaders abroad, do not want to hear say anything concerning peace. Everyone on the ground is tired as far as the conflict is concerned. When you bring up an idea, you are seen as a black leg. Okay? Yeah, but this initiative is to train people on how to go about what we are talking about. Yes, because if you knew how to go about this thing, you should have stopped the war. Huh? It's going on because everybody is just talking. We want to. This guy say, okay, come, let us train, so that you will not just be, I want to, on WhatsApp. But that, yes, you should take action.
Social media.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. I am Japa writing from Muya. Please, it's one of the tickish way of bringing us again in this total mess again. What the people want should be given to them, and not beating around the bush. The international community knows the game that they are playing.
What the people want, Mr. Liu, quick one. I said it here that in 2018, the people want separation. When you get to the people, he's in Moya, I'm happy. Let him go to Moya market or in his quarter and ask just 10 persons, what do you want? Of that 10, I can assure you 7 or 8 will say one piece, as opposed to what used to pertain in 2018. So what Center for Human Rights and Democracy is saying is that, come, share your experience, tell us what the people want. We will help you so that you can know how to present it.
Okay. Mr. Kum, good evening to you all. I doubt why we are wasting our precious time. So many of us have said President Biya should release Ayuk Tabe and 9 others, BBC Macho and people locked up in various prisons, grant amnesty to those in the diaspora, and call for a genuine dialogue, but it is not happening. What are you expecting? Okay. Good evening to you. There is no harm in trying. President Paul Biya's loan started. Okay. I'm very sure this move will not be approved by both the parties. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Kimbi Maxwell is writing from Douala. Good evening, Mr. Liu. You in the studio. I'm called Sandrine Berinyuy. I'm writing from Boya. Greetings to you all, especially Berinyuy in the studio. Where is Berinyuy? Okay, Cajetan. Berinyuy is greeting Berinyuy. Okay. Good evening to you. Says they want the doctor's number. Now, when is the training starting, doctor?
So we have 1 more week left for our media sensitization, and then we'll start looking at the different applications. So please, those who have applied should be patient. I'm already working on, and those who did not at least give me CVs or documents that were needed, I wrote to them. So let's just be patient. We are still on our media awareness to let everyone know, because we are doing this in the north also, so that, because remember we are also working with the Boko Haram insurgency. So when we are done with the media sensitization, now we are doing it alongside looking at the different profiles, and then we will get to those also that we think does not apply but also should be part of the critical pool of stakeholders. When we are done and we have those we know and believe are the 30 persons who form the critical pool of stakeholders, then we'll schedule the training.
Okay. So the training will take place in Boya or
we are in
Douala?
So I got the question that usually they say in the conflict you choose a neutral ground. Where will the training take place? We'll communicate that to the 30 persons who are to train.
Okay. You say it's 1 month?
It's not a 1 month training. We'll decide on that.
And you say they must be physically present?
Yes, it's a physical. We need their physical presence.
Now, after the training, what will you be expecting from those who will be opportune to be part of it?
No, we are selecting those who are already impacting their society in one way or the other toward peace building processes. And what we expect is that they'll go back to their communities and be able to talk to the people, to have their own, to have the community members share their own experiences. Maybe they have been living in conflict for too long. For example, those who are in the northwest and southwest regions, since 2016, they have been experiencing violence. And if they can go back to their communities and discuss with these people, have their experiences, heard their voices, and also come up with the initiatives on how we can move forward. We are open. Come to us with the initiative and we are going to push it forward. Because maybe you have the initiative, you do not have enough capacity to maybe to push the initiative forward. You come to us, we can do it. Can partner with other organizations. You know, Goals 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals stand for strong partnerships. We cannot do it alone. We partner with other civil society organizations. And if after the training, we also expect that participants or the beneficiaries should be able to implement to carry on the same initiative. If they can also train other community members within their various localities, for example, these are some of the expectations we are hoping to have after the training.
Mr. Kum, let's also not forget that if we had a laid out plan of what they should do afterwards, we'll not even be calling them, we'll just tell them that this is your mandate, go and do it. So their task after the training will depend on the different strategies.
They themselves will need to strategize.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Based on their respective
communities
realities.
That they meet. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
There's something also that some members of the public don't seem to understand. This conflict, dialogue is not a day thing, it's a process. And it takes a long time. There's a post-conflict era. After the conflict must have come to an end. Now, you still need these people to still be able
to, exactly.
For the implementation phase, assuming that, okay, we have agreed on the prisoners have been freed, people have been, amnesty has been given, maybe they have given the federation, there'll still be conflict. Because maybe in a new dispensation, a community against another community may say, we feel we have been cheated now. Biased, so these stakeholders will now also be now within the person and post the dialogue. Because dialogue, after the dialogue, the implementation phase. And when you implement, you have to evaluate the level of implementation. So it is a continuous exercise. And people should not just limit it within the confine or say, okay, no, President Bobby, I know what to do, he should do it. Okay, let's say he has done it. Now, okay, will people still be satisfied? What if President Bobby has decided and said, okay, let's have a 10-state federation? Within the 10-state federation, how are you sure that within the different divisions across that particular region, there will not be problems across the different divisions? How do you handle it? The second aspect, let's say you decide that there's confederation. How do you handle the next crisis that will come, because there will be crisis? So each implementation phase, there's bound to be a friction. So conflict is not a physical aspect where you say a physically fight would be, but also when thoughts and ideas don't align to each other. Now, when thoughts and ideas don't align to each other, you experience conflict. And now, the more it escalates, that's where you experience now direct conflict, direct violence. Because a while ago, from the beginning, I talked about cultural, structural, and direct violence. Structural violence is when a group of persons feel that they are more intelligent than the other, and this will arise in the level of the implementation. Cultural violence is when a group of people feel that they are more superior in that locality than the other. If there's a 10-state federation, a particular division may feel that they are better than the other. Now, direct violence is when now you see the use of weapons and materials. So these persons will be trained on identifying maybe the cultural, the structural, and the direct, and see how they can negotiate the path forward.
Okay. negotiate the path forward. For those who are interested in going through the training, I think they should be positive and request for doctors' numbers so that they can reach out to them. But how do we kill the spirit of always criticizing, complaining, not believing in the possibility of us providing our solutions?
Maybe we muster the courage and join those who want change, and maybe when we're part of the change, we'll start thinking positively, because I think it's all about a positive mindset. How, in your own little way, can you contribute to change?
Yeah, but I don't know. You are the one. Cajetan. You're the one who raised the issue of international community that has to. But if we don't have people who should also lobby and show signs for the international community to come, would they just land here on their own?
No. Before I said that, I remember I said that we need to start building the capacity of those who can also speak within our country. Yes, like these community leaders or peace activists or peace builders whom we are going to be recruiting to train them. I think, yeah, we must start from within. We must build our own capacities and start talking by ourselves, start trying to resolve the conflict by ourselves, and then inviting the international community to join us to maybe support our initiatives, or also to add to what we have been doing, or maybe subtract, something like that. Yeah. So the international community cannot just come in. We must start from somewhere and then now invite the international, because they are not living the experiences of this.
Yeah, but this project is also funded by Canada, right? But is it not the international community, or we just expect the international community to?
I'm sure maybe he's talking about collective action.
Yeah, but they themselves, the international community is being accused at many quarters.
Yeah.
Why are they feet dragging?
They are feet dragging, and you know, when we talk about international community, oftentimes we talk about collective action, as we have seen in other conflicts, like in Ukraine, it's a collective action. Yeah, but on the other hand, also there's something which I want to say that is very important, is that one of the issues that made the Canadian talk to fail was because of the fact that the belligerent, maybe the other side, did not know how to communicate. You know, so if you have negotiators or people who are trained on conflict, their role also is to help belligerents to know what to say and what not to say. Because what you say may terminate an upcoming negotiation on the table. Remember that when the Canadian first publication was done, some people said, no, don't use this, use this word. You know, what matters, especially when you are going for conflict. And this person said it must be between this, that. And probably that's why you see that when this announcement came, the state of Cameroon did not react immediately. They look at the response. So that's to tell you that international community first is not an aspect of just a nation. Yeah, we want to appreciate the Canadian-led, Canada for their effort, and also U.S. government has been saying a lot, because we see the U.S. Senate has also talked about this issue. Even the British, the British Parliament has talked about the issue. And so, what probably some people are wishing to see is the collective action, where now we say, okay, probably the West should institute sanctions to force both parties to come on the table. But even if these sanctions are given collectively, what will be when the sanctions are given, how will you negotiate this if you don't have people who are already prepared to negotiate? If they were sanctioned people and say, okay, let's go to the table, who are you going to talk with? How ready are you? So that is why if you attend this training, it will give you the ability to know that at any point in time, you can be ready. There's always a cliche where government will say, we don't know who to discuss with. We don't know who to discuss it. Okay, come and attend this training. So when you now finish the training, you don't know who to discuss with. We know who you can discuss with. Mr. A, Mr. B attended a training. We know Mr. A and B can represent us. Mr. A, so when you say we don't know who to discuss with, they have a point. And when I hear those who are saying that the government has not approved it, the separatists need to approve it, what will change, what will not change, something will change, because we don't know the next conflict where it will start from. in the next community. And so we encourage people to come and attend. And in the same vein, we want to appreciate Partners for Peace, especially those from Canada, who have always been having the mind of seeing that peaceful cohesion rule in Cameroon. However, I will say this before you take the mic, that for us to have true and lasting peace, we must not just speak, but we must listen and understand why this person is saying what he or she is saying. Listening alone solved 30 or 40% of a conflict and reduced it from a violent to a non-violent. And from that non-violent, you can now mitigate it further.
Okay, we can now mitigate it further. We are going to be ending at this juncture. Thank you, Doctor, for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Kum, for having us.
And we wish you the best.
Thank you so much.
Not going to be easy. Thank you for coming too.
Thank you very, very much, sir.
And to you, Tah Maih Jarvis, thank you.
Thank you. Also, a special good evening to those who took our time to criticize us. It's part of the process. We are all this part of the dialogue that we are talking about. Special good evening to the President of the Republic and those who are also stakeholders of Cameroon. I'm talking about all the political party stakeholders, presidents, because all of them have a stake in this. Also, the Independent Consulate and the House of Chiefs, and also the members of the known civil society organization. And above all, special good evening to Senior Barrister Gobalan Kongo Felix, to say that, sir, courage, do not stumble. We know sticks and stones will be thrown at you, but as experienced as you are, we know that you are God's servant. You shall always take the sticks and stones and build the house, because until the Lord builds, the laborers labor in vain. And so courage, may the good God continue to guide you.
Thank you all who took time off to watch today's edition of the program. To you, Desmond and Eli, we are very grateful. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.